All right, welcome to day 2 of building an app from scratch. So yesterday we had a look at what tools I'm going to be using for building. So quick recap, N8N for the front end, Bolt.new for the front end, N8N for the back end, and then Mammoth.ai for everything that has to do with critical thinking and reasoning as a whole. So far, we've just introduced those tools and built nothing. We've got nothing. So crucially for today, we have 2 objectives. First objective is going to be create a landing page, right? That should be relatively easy thanks to Bolt. We're going to be able to have a place that explains to people who are interested in our app what the app does. Maybe they can sign up with, their email, register an interest, form, etc., and just have a place to redirect traffic. It's never too late. Never too early to start building traffic, to start generating, traffic in some way, and just get people thinking, just even making people aware that your app exists, right? Secondly, this is going to be a bit more challenging. We're going to be defining user flow, all right? I'll talk more about this later, but just to give you a big picture about user flow, it's essentially the experience that you want the ideal user to have as they're navigating your app, right? Do you want them to instantly log in? What do they see once they log in? Do they, need to input some preferences, or can they instantly access the service that you're providing? What is that experience? What is the service? So it is really a step-by-step breakdown of, like if you were reading a book, it needs to feel intuitive. Chances are you're not going to get user flow correct the first time, right? You have an idea, probably a convoluted idea of what it is that you need to be building. And realistically, you're going to reduce until you have just the simple, the bare bones, the skeleton, the minimal viable product. These mean much of the same things to essentially perform what you want your app to perform. All right, so let's get started. In front of me, I have Bolt here. We've got Mammoth. I've already had a bit of a conversation with Mammoth where I'm getting it to give me a structure of what my objectives are over the course of the next 10 days. And here I've even included, and this is key, the context, right? Yesterday we talked about narrowing the variables, being precise in your prompt so that you can be precise or expect a precise output. And if you're precise with your prompt, then you constrain the variables, you limit the place for randomness, for chance to take effect, and so you can be consistent in what you're getting. And then identify if what you have is what you want. That's up to you. So at the end of the day, I specified in this prompt that I'm going to be working with an AI builder, so I want it to give me a concise plan. All right. Crucially, as I've said yesterday, you don't want to have Bolt doing the critical thinking. As much as it's capable of doing the critical thinking, you're just wasting tokens, right? Bolt is your builder. It's not your architect. It's not your chief engineer. You want to be using a separate model for this, all right? And ultimately, you're meant to be the architect. You're meant to be the one thinking, okay, again, what's the user flow? What's the experience? How's it gonna go about? So since this is the first, prompt that you're essentially going to be giving Bolt, you want to start with a strong foundation, in my experience. So ensure that you're very happy with the prompt, you're very happy with the criteria. In my case, often, you may see this as well, it's a bit generic. It's just deducing what it thinks you want and then very much putting that in front of you in a close, but not necessarily accurate way, right? I'm not, for example, with this journey, with this adventure of building this app, I want to really put forward that you can derive so much from the experience of where you are, and that there's so much history and heritage in the places that you are that you're not aware of. And that's really the focus, to kind of unlock this potential that is very much there. So when it just says plan your route, travel and unlock quizzes, it feels a bit generic. And so I'm going to tell the model that I think it's a bit generic, and maybe we can highlight a bit more the value proposition, right? Why we think this needs to be an app, why this provides an experience that is worth building. All right, so here I don't believe the value proposition is clear. It's more about unlocking the history / cultural heritage / fun facts of the area and uncovering them as you travel. Keep it clear and concise. So we're going to put that in and see what we get back and if I'm happier with that. History, culture, and secrets of every place you pass through, your journey becomes. Right, the tagline is already too long here. So right, I've modified the prompt again. Firstly, I've given the name of the app, right? In my case, it's AutoQuiz. And also, in my opinion, what is quite important and where this app can be exciting is that depending on your interest as an individual, say you're interested in law, in history, which would be quite accessible, then based on the locations you're traveling through, it can fetch fun facts that match that criteria, right? Maybe if you're, a law nerd and you're really interested in like court decisions, then you can be traveling through a certain city where a very landmark important case took place. And that would be fun to know, right? If you're interested in that specific niche. However, that's something that I see as important, and it may not be the case. So again, crucially, thanks to the landing page, we're going to validate, are people interested? Do people understand that there's that customization element? And if I'm wrong, then I can pivot and adjust because we're still very much at the early stages. In this case, I also want to ask for feedback. So first I'm going to input this prompt so that it modifies the prompt that I'm then going to be putting into Bolt. And now I think I'm just gonna add some stylistic elements. So ask it to pivot into something a bit more, let's see, this is purely an experiment. I like the idea of having something feel a bit like a pirate map, in terms of the paper. Okay, so stylistically now, here's my prompt, looking good. Now stylistically, I would like it to echo the themes of maybe old paper / papyrus, where pirates / adventurers may have used old scrolls and other of these tools for discovery. Maybe the font should have an archaic, an ancient element to it. You've probably noticed there's a lot of mistakes in the way I've written this, but crucially, it is comprehensible. It is comprehensible to me, hopefully to you, and most importantly, to the model. So let's see what we get here. All right, I'm quite happy with this. Let's prompt it into Bolt and see what we get. Whilst Bolt is building that, we can work on the second thing, which is defining the user flow. So there's different ways of going about this, right? Some people love to use Figma for design to have this visual elements. Other people may prefer to just write it on paper because then you can scratch it out and modify it. I personally prefer using paper, but obviously that's not going to work in this medium. And I'm curious to try something different. So what I'm going to do is interact with the model that has already the context of what the app that we're trying to build is. And in this case, we're going to try and get it to also predict what a user flow may look like. Okay, so I've written this prompt, looking good. Now, given this context, please provide a step-by-step MVP user flow. So really the core, we want the core, i.e. user lands on page, logs in, selects preferences in terms of what they're interested in, history, music, law, etc. Selects the starting location, preferably gives access to where it is that they are so that we can track their location as they progress. Destination, and then begin. And as they progress through their journey, then, they unlock the questions that are contextually relevant. So let's see what we get here. And in the meantime, this is what we have from Bolt. I don't hate it. My initial feeling is it has got that older feel with the paper grid, this kind of color is what I had in mind. Uncover hidden stories as you travel. Ask questions about the places you pass through, history, culture, you choose what to discover. Join waitlist. Okay, interesting design there for the app. I think we can remove this. Interest, travel, no questions, get early access. Okay, I like it. The main reason I like it already is stylistically, it's what I had in mind. So obviously I'm biased, but I'm happy with what I have. Secondly, it is clear. Right, there is one swipe, one scroll, and I'm already there. So it's not taking too much time to try and get an idea of what it is. Uncover hidden stories as you travel. End of story. It's clear. I think I made a slight mistake with the spelling of quiz, so we might have to modify that as well. But there's a few things to be tweaking. If you've played with Bolt before, or maybe you haven't, but there is a powerful tool that you can use in this bottom left corner, which is the select tool. And basically, we talk about context a lot when we're interacting with models, and you need context to point to what it is that's relevant. You're saying, hey, look over here. I want you to focus on this problem, or I want you to take this entire PDF document and identify this one little thing, right? Crucially, with Bolt, we're going to be pointing out visual elements often. And in this case, I'm going to be saying, hey, I don't know how I feel about this phone in the middle. It doesn't necessarily need to be there, or maybe I want to modify it, and I can specify that as the section I want to work on. So for now, I'm gonna do that. All right, so here's the comment I have. I love this div displaying the UI for phone users, but the image needs to be more clear. Perhaps the starting location starts with A, end location with a B, and along the way include question marks to kind of have this the journey element pointed out a bit more. So let's see what Bolt does with this. And when it comes to vibe coding, you can juggle, you can choose to stand by and wait for the output, or you can see, this is why I like leveraging multiple tools, you can see what the user flow is suggesting. And if you're happy, if there are things you want to target. So let's have a look at that. Okay, I'm really happy with how the user flow turned out initially, but before we give it more focus, Bolt has finished building, so let's have a look at what this is looking like. Not quite what I had imagined, a bit closer, but quite chaotic. Let's see if we can get something a bit better. So it basically actually matched what we're looking for, but it's ignored its previous, stylistic choices. And so it's just overlapping in a bit of a weird way. And that's something you're gonna have to clarify. All right, so here I highlighted, hey, you're overlapping, and I'm trying to identify what part, pointed out to Bolt, what part you're overlapping with, so I can separate the two, and hopefully we can have the roadmap in the top section and then the little text questions at the bottom. So let's see what we get here. All right, back on this. This looks a bit better, but still not quite the slick impression we're hoping for. Crucially, it would be nice if the question marks are at the respective points and the A to the B. Getting there. So provide some affirmation, provide some support. All right, so crucially, I want this A to B with the question mark section to actually go on top of what Bolt initially created. Unfortunately, I can point it out. It may sometimes take a bit of tweaking. Right here, I'm selecting the full div, and I more want to select this asset. I don't know if it's just an image or such, but if you find just the right spot, boom, a polygon. There we go. Getting there, however, the roadmap needs to be placed on the top end of this polygon that you created. All right, so let's see if Bolt is actually able to get this now. And so while Bolt is doing this, if you have a bit of experience with code and you're just, curious, or even if you don't, you can always dive here and actually look at the code base and what Bolt has generated so far. And for simple changes that, where you might just be changing some text or HTML, you can really just go into the code. You don't need to bother Bolt with this type of stuff. So in my case, auto quiz, I want 1Z. So I could already type auto quiz and identify every section where I've got this mistake, and then Command S for save. So that's done there. Where else have we got it? Auto quiz here. You want to make sure when you're doing this that you do it for every single one, because in the event that, it would surprise me, but in the event that a function is being called with the name auto quiz and you just modify it in one section, then chances are you're going to break some code elsewhere. But here it really mostly seems to be just an index HTML, and afterwards more, mostly I think so far I've just changed text, no classes. Should be fine. So we're going to save that, and that should also preview it here straight away. We've got the correction as we wanted. Auto quiz here, auto quiz. Perfect. And the root visualization, not quite. So you may have challenges in this way where you want something really, really specific and Bolt is not able to perform that. Try not to get bogged down. Try to focus on the larger picture and what it is that you're actually trying to build. This is not going to make or break your app. In this case, I'm still going to experiment a bit, but I don't want to be wasting all my tokens on just this small thing, right? There's a lot more to build, and you want to keep the big picture in mind. All right, part 2, we're going to look at the user flow we have so far. I'm quite happy with what it is that we have built. So let's, see what the flow is. I've double checked it. I'm relatively happy with it. There's some things that I would tweak, but that's part of it. So now we're going to copy this in quite an inefficient way, but copy it nonetheless and paste it into our document here. All right. Makes sense so far. You've got the landing page, so you're not logged in and just try and hook people into like, what's this? Sign up. You obviously want to get people to sign up just very quickly so that you can already, get their preferences and create an experience that's tailored to their interests. As stating here, we've got then, the options to select what type of interest they have, the route setup, so they have to select their starting location and then the destination, and then you track the journey as they go. There's a lot of things to be thinking about. Obviously, this is a big overview, but this does give me a step-by-step approach of like, okay, this is what I want to be building. So now I could focus on signing up, and probably that's going to be the video for tomorrow. If you've tuned in so far, thank you so much for watching this much. And I hope you're enjoying it. If you have any questions with your build, any questions and challenges with your experience, feel free to shoot me a message either on Discord or just comment in the YouTube channel. Take care.